All right, friend, we have another good one here. So I find that the tribal information is just so rich because really this really is the material plane. The tribal energy within the body graph gives us the full representation as to what it is to be in a human suit and to walk around on this, globe that we call Earth. This is the materialism. So now we're moving to the channel of community. So we were over at the 54, 32, 44, 26. This is capitalism. This is where we find the material way. This is where we find liquid production. This is where, over on that side, this is where the human being is outside of home, working, making money. I shouldn't, we can work and make money from home on a computer just like I am. But this is where we are externalizing our strengths and our skills and our communication. Now on this side, this is more internal. This is family. This is friends. So when we go from the 1949 to the 3740, here we're talking about socialism. This is really more about the resources of the tribe. So this is where we're going to find food and water and shelter. On the other side, this was about, using the talents and the skill set to, produce and provide for the tribe. On this side, it's more about what does this network really consist of? So here we have the channel of community, a design of being a part seeking a whole. So when we take a look at the channel of community, again, these slides are jam-packed. So please take this as you need to, move through this information as you need to, okay? So this is projected. This is tribal, support, it's timeless, it's touch, so there's lots of kinesthetic here. Now let's just take a look at where the gates reside. And they reside in bonding. So the 40 is about relationships and bonding. And on the other side, we have the 37. Well, this is in consciousness. So in order to bond correctly, what is so important is that we, as an individual, move correctly through our strategy and authority so that our connection is correct, so that we're connecting consciously. We're not connecting by jumping in, by being, very spontaneous, even though some of us have that inner authority, that could be possible. But this really is about, okay, how do we bond on a conscious level? In the consciousness field, even though this is the quarter of the mind, which you guys are going to drop into when we get to that module, even though it is the quarter of the mind, this is more about consciousness. So this is one of the actual 3 oppositions in the wheel. Community lies at the heart of humanity. So again, we've reviewed this and seen this a couple other times, but the 3420 and the 4323 are also the oppositions in the wheel. So if they land in the Sun Earth, they are opposites. They're always going to bring together a channel. If they land in the nodes, they're always going to bring together that channel. And what's really funny is that lots of times you see this throughout the body graph, doesn't matter what planetary activations happen there. So the pure emotional projected channel and the source of the emotional bargain. So the mundane bargains of support within the tribe, I'll do the dishes, you take out the garbage. There's no truth in the now because we are looking at a channel, if defined in the body graph, has an emotional authority. So bargains cannot be constructed and accepted in the moment. That's not healthy. Bargains need to be mulled over and, come to clarity and make sure that the bargain for both sides is correct. So bargains must be approached with clarity over time. This is the part seeking the whole, and this takes time. So on this side of the body graph, we saw that the 26, it'll work for money. But the 40, the 40 actually works for affection, love, respect, inclusion, pats on the back, a little love making, and a good dinner. So there's no profit guaranteed on the emotional, socialist side. The 40 will give up a day of work to build the temple, to be on the community, to build for the community. They will work for nothing. They work for nothing, money-wise, to support the tribe. I know this very deeply. I know this very deeply. I do a lot of things, including having a YouTube channel that is completely free. And I have lots of emails and Facebook messages from that tribe, and I do it for nothing. So, we work 40 hours a week in the 26's world to make money, and then we come home to the 40's world, which is all about, the family structure, and work at all the things that actually need to be done to keep the tribe functioning. So there's two different sides of the story here. One's capitalism, one's socialism. So this guarantees that the energy and the power of the will and the resolve is there to deliver the goods. The 37 is the mouth. This feeds and massages the ego of the 40. It's the provider so that they can keep going. And the 40, the stomach, the provider that secures and delivers until it gets what it needs. Money, food. So there's fair bargains and meetings with an exchange, and this negotiation will take time. The efficiency of the ego here is dependent on the weight of the emotional wave. Sexually, we're looking at the marriage contract. Down in the 1949, that was the bridegroom. This was, the flirtatious 19 and the 49 that says, listen, I'll accept this bargain, but you need to obey me. And then here is where the bargain gets written. Because this really is, can the family that we procreate, can it be nourished? Can it be taken care of? This is the emotional pleasure, the sex, the food. It's an electromagnetic, and this can have an issue as the person with the 40 will never have time to rest. So if it's an electromagnetic, what happens here is the motor wave of the 37 is constantly pushing for the 40 to deliver. And when it's an electromagnetic, that 40 can burn out, because what happens again in the ego, what does the ego need to do? It needs to rest. It'll deliver and it'll work, but it needs to rest. This is the establishment of the proper bargain in a relationship. If these people do not wait, denial will become the theme of the relationship. I see this all the time. All the time. I see it where emotional authority beings jump into relationships and then they get trapped in there. And then after a while, they literally deny everything. I see this. So this is where all of a sudden you close your door because you don't want to be disturbed, or you don't go home because you don't want to have something, you don't want to have somebody tell you what you need to do. So you must wait past the recognition. Remember, we're looking at projected. What happens there? Recognition, invitation. We need to look past the point of recognition for clarity to enter into the bargain. Just because there was recognition there, does not say clarity. Recognition happens as you touch this bargain more than once. What is the bond that needs to be created here? Emotional people, remember, you guys need to. It is important for you to visit and revisit and visit and revisit so that you can come to clarity. Remember, the emotional intelligence here needs time to touch things. So the 4037 always looks for the arrangements, and these arrangements will shift over time. They just do. Naturally, there's individuals throughout this whole thing, right? And individuals go through mutation. I am not, at the age of almost 45, I am not the same person that I was when I entered into my current relationship at the, age of 16. Over time, there's been some massive shifts in me individually, in him individually. So the bargains and the arrangements have to shift. So for the last 400 years, this has been the background frequency that has been the overarching energy. This is, people trying to find that community. People that are like, okay, we need to procreate. We need to have more children. And the marriage contract was such a huge thing. Like, there's still 200 million women in this world every year that are forced into arranged marriages. That's where, there's, of course, the contract of the prenuptial agreement and those kind of things. That's why we've seen this huge explosion of human on this planet. Because the crossover planning and that tribal energy is all about. And what has happened is that we do this without coming to emotional clarity. And without emotional clarity, most of the time, there's no nourishment of those children that are procreated. So in sexuality terms, the 40 is about deliverance. This is the gate of sexual denial, a design of masturbation. The 37 is the family. This is the gate of sexual affection, a design of cuddling. So the 40th gate loves to work, and the 37th gate needs to have things happen. The 40 is looking at the relationship, and its concern is to work hard, and the quality of life and the sex is never going to be what the relationship is about. The will, and will deny the sexual pleasure and go off and masturbate. Because it isn't about the, sex at all when you're looking at the tribe. It's about the basic needs. So masturbation is essential because we are dealing with the potential for constant reproduction. So this is the way to avoid reproduction and reduce the level of dependence the 40th gate could potentially have to deliver resources for. The 37th gate is the gate of affection, and it is meeting this denial. So love in the tribe aspect is not at all romantic like it is in the individual circuitry. This is about the survival of the species, protecting oneself from the difficulties in life, organizing humanity as we have witnessed in this cross of the planning, this cross of planning in this epoch. Organizing humanity into communities, organizing humanity through government, organizing humanity through NGOs, like all of these kind of things. And all of these organizations and big business, this has been an organizing structure. So the natural tendency in the marriage contract actually is not sexual. One side is masturbation and the other side is cuddling. the marriage contract is mostly rooted in practical priorities. Food on the table, water in the cup, shelter overhead, a territory, education. So when two people come together, it's so interesting when, the actual contract of marriage has absolutely nothing to do with sex. So the 19 flirts and makes it seem like it will be something that it is not. As soon as they get into the bond, it all changes. These relationships are about finding a way to work. They are not rooted in love, but in basic needs. Once the basic needs are met, this is a comfortable relationship. We see this. I have the 40, and my husband and I, we set out a bargain within the first 3 weeks of coming together. We knew we weren't going to have children. We weren't going to be married. That was never, ever on the table. It was a bargain. It was what we knew was going to take place. And what him and I have done is we have been together for almost 30 years. And work has been our core of who and what we are. And it's okay with us. So the 37th gate, this is the mouth. This is feeding the stomach of the 40, this ego gate in the 40. It is designed to massage the 40 with food. So the tribe's entire foundation is to reproduce and nurture, and within this cycle have plenty of resources to sustain the tribe. So the channel is deeply social, and this gate is one that needs to hug and touch and cuddle. But it must be within the limitations of the bargain. So the potential in the wave is to see who will or who will not deliver the work necessary within the family unit to sustain the basic needs. Again, I see this. I know lots and lots of 3740s. Naturally, as a 3420, I attract them, and then with my husband having the 4323, naturally those three channels that are oppositions in the wheel, they naturally just come together. They just do, and there's copious amounts of them on the planet. So let's walk through the 37 a little bit here so that we can get an understanding as we walk through what does this gate really mean. So the manifestation, macro and micro, cosmically, of the organic nature of communities. Right, and go cross of planning, making plans and bargains to have security for the future. The juxtaposition of bargains ensure your community progresses. And then the left angle cross of migration, keeping the community in sync with the ever-changing times. So at the very core base of this is mother-father. Position of inherent respect that ensures a focus for the development of guidelines. Remember, we're talking about bargains here. There has to be guidelines. So harmony is the key to the successful maintenance of relationship. It is only through harmony that the beauty and the values of the family can endure. Friendship is rooted in sensitivity and ensures harmony. So anytime you see the word sensitivity, it's just another way of saying resources. So I don't even think that I put that in the 1949. So sensitivity really is about resources. So go back to your slides of the 1949 and put that in. I don't think I wrote it anywhere. So make sure that you understand that sensitivity, so the channel of sensitivity really is the channel of resources. Because at the very, very foundation, that is what the family needs. And then when we flip to the other side, the 5432, this is about transforming, those that are ambitious into a place where they can be productive for us on the material plane. Here we're looking at who can produce the resources to take care of all of us. So the second line is this responsibility. So this is, the natural, right? This is about being responsible for your own self within the family network. So the understanding of the principle of individual responsibility is the foundation of successful cooperation. The possibility of friendship through individual responsibility. A tendency to point out the responsibility of others and the possibility that friendship will lead to pointing out the responsibility of others. So this is really where you have to take responsibility within the tribe. If you're not pulling your weight, guess what's going to happen? Tribal council comes down and they're like, listen, you have to pull your weight. If you want to eat 3 squares a day, you need to be responsible for bringing your own capabilities here. And then even-handedness, the success of any group is dependent on maintaining order. So the ability to judge what behavior is appropriate and to react in a balanced manner to transgressions. The possibility to have the sensitivity to know what behavior is appropriate in a relationship. So an ironic tendency to either test incessantly the borders of acceptability or to respond to the very same tendency in others with severity. The possible lack of sensitivity to what behavior is appropriate. So this is really interesting, right? So this is the behavior that is designed to get a return. It is looking for resources. The third line is the business world. So first we have to have guidelines, right? We have to have this bargain. Then everybody has to pull their weight. They all have to be responsible. Because the behavior that is required within the tribe, everybody needs to be able to, have access to resources and be able to produce resources if possible, right? Because what will the tribe do, the socialism side, if you can't? Then, you're taken care of because you're part of the tribe. So what is the behavior? And then the leadership by example. Of course, this is pretty self-explanatory here. Any member of the family may take on a leading role through exemplary behavior. The manifestation of the highest principles in everyday and practical affairs, the possibility of the highest principles in all relationships resulting in a leadership role. A conservatism that generally only accepts the leadership of the father, who may or may not be a valued role model. The possibility of being insensitive to the leadership of anyone other than those accepted by tradition. So that, again, here we have this dichotomy happening here, right? So traditionally, it's the male gets the family business, the sons get the family business, the daughters do not. But what's happening here is that there's leadership by example. So if you followed all the structure, if you followed the guidelines, and you're responsible for yourself, and you have the correct behavior, male or female, because you've had this exemplary behavior, this is an example of leadership. But you may or may not be the head of state. The love here, natural and unaffected devotion to the family. Natural harmony and perfected sharing, natural harmony and sharing possible through friendship. Emotional dependency that often turns into hatred. the possibility of dependency turning love into hate. Really, this is the, whoa, we all love each other. We're in this community. We're in this family, This is unconditional love. As long as you followed the guidelines, you took responsibility, you had the correct behavior, and you exemplified that. Then you get love. Because the family and the tribe does not want somebody that is stepping over the line. And then this is, the sixth line always. The sixth line is always looking out. Constantly looking out. Purpose. The energy to maintain the family is enhanced by recognizing its values. The gift of not only recognizing the inner meaning of the family, but an appreciation for its values. The possibility of extending friendships through the appreciation of its values. A need for diversity that may ignore the achievements of the family in favor of withdrawal. The need for diversity that, despite appreciation, will prefer casual friendships. So now, what's important here is that the 1949, 3740, 51, 25, 10, 20. This is called the mystical way. Now there's 4 channels there. But actually what this particular channel does is it's a bridging channel. It's a bridging channel between the ceremony of the 1949 and then the initiation into awakening that happens through the 51, 25, 10, 20. And purpose here, it is so interesting because what the 37 actually looks out at, the next hexagram is the 63. So it looks out at the 63-1. And what is the 63? Well, the 63 is in the head center. The 63 is a part of the right angle cross of consciousness. And it is doubt, looking to the logical aspect. But what it is called is after completion. In the spiral of life, all ends are beginnings. So here, the tribe is very, very much mundane. It's on the very base level of, the basic needs of the human. And yet, the 37 is looking out into the consciousness field, saying, you know what? All ends are beginnings. This is the spiral of life. So it's interesting as we walk through watching all of this, and we're gonna look at this as we walk around the wheel as well. So really, what is the purpose of having, of constantly having and having to look for resources? We're living on this mundane plane. So what the 37 What the 37-6 is doing, it is yearning for that deepest question. What is it all for? So the 37 is truly not looking to move to the 2145. Even though that's going to be the very last channel that we take care of and look at, because it's tribal. What the 37.6, this purpose is actually looking at, is the mystical way. It's looking to move to the 5125. It wants to be awakened through initiation. So that it can come to recognize the holiness of its nature and not simply just to work on this plane. You know, when we really take a thought and just scan the world, there's actually 70% of all the women on this planet spend more than 50% of their time looking for firewood and water. Like, what's that all about? So the nature of the family in the end is this yearning for an explanation so that they can see that this trivia in this life is somehow sustained. That it makes sense. That this macrocosm and this microcosm really makes sense. And that's what I love about design, is that it is showing us that we are designed to be on this mundane plane. We are designed to be material and yet be the witness of our spiritual connection and letting our physical bodies just be the conduit. When we look at the 40, I know this gate so very well. So very well. So the gate of aloneness, this deliverance. So the gate of denial, uptight, aloneness. I don't need you. I can provide for myself. The 40 has a love for their work and can be total loners. Totally agree with that. They show their love through their support. This is the potential will to work within the community in order that it can go beyond being alone. So the 40th gate and the ego love, the gate of the stomach. The 40th gate is about working. And it says, I'm doing all of this for you. You better love me. So the 40 is waiting for someone to work for so it can earn their love. So of course, when it says, I'm doing this all for you, and if you are in your true self, it's happening. It's just happening. It just doesn't now need to be said to the family anymore. The not self wants to, I'm doing this all for you, blah, blah, blah. What are you getting back? Blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you, I hear this come out of my mouth lots. I'm doing this for you. So the natural love that is received here is actually appreciation. The moment I feel appreciation and have a sense of appreciation, all of that hard work did not actually feel like hard work. All I need from my husband is a thank you. Poof. And how he shows me appreciation is by literally just letting me be me. I feel totally seen and appreciated by him. And I work. I put a lot of work into his dream. But it doesn't feel like work. So if you meet the right person, you are designed to deliver and to take on the burden. There will be a correlation between how much you deliver based on the appreciation coming back to you. So you must have someone to love so that you have someone to work for. The ego is intrinsic to what the tribe is all about. Deliverance is both mundane and mystical. Deliver resources and be the breadwinner. Deliverance from evil is in the Lord's Prayer. So deliverance equivalent to being brought to Satori or enlightenment, right? Because what is the 40 doing? The 40 is literally, has this fork in the road where it can move up to the 2145. But really, what this side wants to do is move over to the 51. And it wants enlightenment. So when you're looking at the 1949, the 3740, know that their number one space is not to go to the top of the ladder. That's not it. They don't need to go to the 2145 and run the show. That's the job of the 54, 32, 44, 26. Here, it is about delivering you to enlightenment, to the 5125, to initiate that Satori moment. So the tribe needs the ego to express its power, and the ego must build up its readiness to use that power. So resting is essential for the ego. It is so important for the ego. So now when we look at the 40 and we walk through all of the channel or all the line values. So the 40 is this gate of aloneness, it's deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. If the ego's constantly struggling, heart attacks are definitely going to happen. There's going to be massive issues with the stomach. The gallbladder will have to be removed. The thymus gland cannot take care of the immune system because the ego literally cannot be in struggle mode 24/7. It needs liberation. It needs that rest. So the right angle cross of planning, making plans for the security and well-being of the family and the community, the juxtaposition of denial, supporting those that benefit your life and denying those that do not. The left angle cross of migration, this is, leading and cherishing and protecting your family and community. So again, on the socialist side, this is all about family and community and nurturing and having those resources. So now recuperation. Here we are, the very, very, foundational level of the 40 is recuperation. The ability to relax and enjoy the fruits of one's labor. The ego strength to enjoy being alone. The moon cannot stand still. The ego uncomfortable with being alone too long. Recuperation is, of course, the fundamental base core of this channel, but of the ego as a whole. This is true for the stomach just as much as it is true for the ego. If you're constantly putting food in the stomach, it cannot digest. It just cannot, mush it up and have the correct acid base that needs to be there in order to break down the food so that the colon can do what it needs to do. So there has to be a rest. And this is why it is so interesting that gut health is directly correlated to the wellness on the material plane. If you do not have a healthy gut, the material plane will always be a struggle, which is detrimental here to the 40, right? And then we have resoluteness. So the power and authority in deliverance to shed forever the qualities which hamper liberation. The power through aloneness to recognize the importance and the potential disruptive effect of others. A natural peacefulness that is deliverance may sympathize with and attempt to nurture the forces which hamper liberation. The power of aloneness to blind the ego to possible disruptive effects of others. So what is this saying? Number one, we need to be able to recuperate. Number two, we need to be resolute. if you're going to disrupt my aloneness, if you're going to disrupt my time to relax, we're going to have to decapitate that energy. And then humility, a calculated mode in deliverance to avoid attracting the attention of negative forces. The subtlety to enjoy deliverance without having to flaunt it. The capacity of the ego to avoid negative forces, even if it means being alone. The ego arrogance that demands attention and gets it. Capacity of the ego to demand attention. So what is it saying here? First, we need to recuperate, and then we need to be resolute. If you're going to disrupt my patterns, my times of rest, I literally have to be very, there has to be humility here. And listen, I can't have that. I just can't have that. In order for me to produce and to deliver those from evil, there can't be negative forces. And having that humility and having that frequency level, literally negative forces, if you're negative forces find you. If you do not have that negative energy, they will not find you, and you will be able to deliver. And then organization, the power to transform and the intuitive intellect to select and organize for the purpose of maintaining deliverance, the power of the ego when organized and active to maintain separateness. An uncontrollable zeal that ignored the quality of support in preference for quantity, which in the long run may destabilize deliverance. And go through the capacity to organize others. That's what the whole channel of planning, and that really is what, the cross of planning, and the channel of community, this is what it does. It organizes us. So that those that can be delivered from evil will be. Those that are to be delivered to resource-wise, they are organized. We can feed them. But you need to let us recuperate. And we need to be, have enough humility to say, listen, I need time off. And have that resoluteness that nobody's going to pull you off of that. So creating an organization where, I just have to spend one day out gathering food in the community for the homeless, and that organization does what it needs to do. And then the rigidity here, the recognition that to achieve liberation, all negative forces must be rejected. The resolution that demands absolute victory. The power of the ego is maintained in the rejection of negative relationships. A tendency in resolution to accept a certain amount of necessary deviation on the assumption that it can be successfully purged later. The weakness of the ego in its loneliness to maintain and reject negative relationships. Like this, these people are very rigid, or can appear to be very rigid because we're projecting onto them. I'll do my thing when I want. When I rest, leave me alone. So there will be a natural peacefulness when these negative forces are not pulling us into working more than what we should be. If there's constant struggle First, I would ask you to please take a look at your gut health. If there's constant struggle on the material plane, and if you are unable to come to a place of awakening, it lies here. Gut health, deliverance, recuperation, resoluteness, humility, rigidity. Now we come to the sixth line. And the sixth line, remember, is on the shore and it's looking out. Decapitation. And I know this so well because it's a part of my design again. So the necessary destruction of inferior forces in positions of power before liberation can take place. Let me tell you, there are so many people in this world that are in power that should never, ever be there, but got there because of bloodline leadership. You know, just for a minute, just think, and I've said this, I said this in the last video as well, just for a moment, if you or I had the trillions and trillions of dollars that flow through the NGOs on this planet, just imagine the heaven on earth that would be present. So the authority, coupled with the you can read that word, to remove from power only those which deserve such drastic treatment. The power and authority of the ego to reject individuals in legitimate defense of the group. Oh, in a heartbeat. You know, as someone who has this and the 45, the 2145, I would in a heartbeat take those trillions of dollars in a second and change this world. So exemplified by the terror of the French Revolution, where the idea of who was deserving of punishment was cruelly extended to an entire class. The distortion of the ego through power and authority. Now, this is where we have Nazism, that, where Nazis killed Jews, or in Africa where you see one tribe literally wipe out another tribe and have a complete genocide. We are all here in meat suits in that diversity because it is beautiful. It's like having a bouquet of flowers. Who can be delivered from evil? And those that are evil need to be decapitated. Now, of course, what is the 40 looking towards? The 40 is looking towards the 64. Confusion before completion. Transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through. This is also the right angle cross of consciousness. So this cross of planning, is the next two gates that it's looking toward is consciousness. So just drop into that. All right. If this is a part of your design, take a look at these two gates. Take a look at this channel. Do you resonate? Do you not? And if it is not in your design, where do you see this show up in the world? All right. Now we will move on to the very last tribal channel.